Hey folks, Riley here from the Awesome Players Off-Road Motorcycle Club, and I was just about to put my 2016 701 Husqvarna Enduro away for the winter and do a little cleanup on it, but I thought before I took everything off of it I would crank out a quick video, since I've had this bike now for 8 years, which is actually 9 seasons, and a few people have asked for my thoughts on it. So let's get started. As I mentioned, this is a 2016 701. This was the first year for the Husqvarna 701 Enduro. It says here it's got 989 kilometers on it. It's actually got about 30,000 kilometers on it, because I'm going to talk about the parts that failed first. One of them was this dash. These are well known for having water get into them. I took it apart, dried it out, resealed it a few times, and finally this year it filled up with water and everything inside corroded and it died. So I bought a new one. These are around $300, so it wasn't the end of the world, but it wasn't great. I think I can get the dealer to reflash this at some point so it will have the correct mileage. But that was my first failure point on this bike, was the dash. The second point of failure, you can't really see it, was behind this cover was the stator. I don't really think it was the bike's fault, because I was running a 90-watt electric vest, charging all kinds of stuff on a big trip, so I think I kind of burned it out. There have been a few failures I've read about, but that one I think was on me. I actually got one rewound by a local vendor and popped it in, and I also have a spare in my toolbox now, so I will never be stranded again, because the back order on the stator was very long. The other problem is under the seat here. I did a video on it. I had a wiring issue where some wires rubbed together and created a short, and that meant the bike could be started without the key in the ignition. It could even be started with the kill switch off. Luckily, my friend Ivan is very competent at those things. I did a video on his troubleshooting, and we got it solved in one evening, and haven't had any troubles with that since. I know it's kind of a crappy way to start a video by talking about the negatives, but I wanted to do that just because the overall experience with this bike has been so good. So those were the little niggly things, which in 30,000 kilometers of some pretty hard off-road riding. This bike also has been entirely submerged underwater once. I have a video on that. It actually floats when the gas tank is mostly empty. Now I think what I'll do is I'll take you through all of the modifications and accessories that I've put on this to kind of get it to where it is set up just the way I like it. The first thing you'll notice is that it has a graphics kit on it. This kit is from SKDA, and it is very thick vinyl. You can customize it. So this has a few customizations to one of their stock templates. It's really thick stuff, protects the bodywork, so if you have nice new bodywork and you want to keep it looking good, get a sticker kit. If your bodywork looks like crap and you want to hide it, get a sticker kit. Next time I get a sticker kit made, I will put the torque values for key things right on the sticker kit. But as for now, I've just been using a label maker. I've done that in a few places, and it really beats having to dig through the manual every time you want to do something. Back to the front of the bike, I did add a strap here. I bought this because I wanted a custom, some custom text on it, but just a piece of rope or some strapping makes it really handy when you need someone to help you pull. I've also got these little rings. These are made by Moose Racing, and it just makes strapping the bike down when you're trailering so much easier, because there is not a lot of room here to feed a strap through. So yeah, they just make life easy when you gotta move your bike. And one of the first things you have to do is get some real handguards. These are handguards by Highway Dirt Bikes, and they are by far the best. This bolt here is not an expansion bolt. You drill and thread the end of the handlebars and you put in a big bolt. And then you replace the top clamp, and it doesn't connect by clamping to the bars. That aluminum bar bolts right to the center where your handlebar clamps are and triangulates it, and it does not move or bend ever. You can see here, these have had a hard life. They work well. You can get different colored plastics if you wish. They even make a rear view mirror that pops out from here. This has a little relocation for your dash, and you can get custom top clamps. This top clamp has holes for 2 power outlets. These are the BMW Powerlet style outlets. One is switched and one is not. So the one that is switched with the key powers my voltmeter. I strongly recommend putting a voltmeter on every bike because that gives you warning of when something's off and you don't get stranded. I love ram balls. These are great for mounting mirrors, GPS cradles, cameras, whatever you want. And if you're going to have ram balls, then you might as well use the wonderful double take mirrors. They don't break. If they do break, they'll replace them. And yeah, they're awesome. Pretty much everybody in our group rides with double take mirrors. You can see here I have the Scott's damper. I had this on my F800. I had to buy a new riser setup, which is from BRP. Since I needed to raise the bars anyway, that worked well. The price on these things has just gone up like a lot of things, so I don't know if I would buy it again. I haven't ridden without one for so long. I don't even know what a bike feels like without one. I think it does help. It's a lot of the rocky stuff we do, so I like it. And as I mentioned, I needed the bars raised anyways. For a tank bag, I'm using this little Moscow. I think it's called the Pico. Just the right size. It has the ability to run power into it. So this is fused off the battery, and then this goes inside the tank bag so I can run a USB charger. This is the second one I've had because the first one, the zipper failed and Moscow replaced it, no questions asked. You don't need a lot of crash protection on these bikes, but it is a water-cooled bike. It does have a radiator. I have the Outback MotorTech crash bars here. They don't weigh much. They install easily. Great protection. You can see the paint's missing. There's gouges, so they've obviously done some work over the years. And Outback MotorTech is just a wonderful company. So I always try to buy from them when I can. This electrical connection is for the awesome players. Jumper cables, so that goes right to the battery. It is not fused, so it is routed very carefully. And that just allows us to jumpstart another bike without having to dig around under the seat to get to the battery. I'm using the triple clamp case savers. These just help protect those cases and tip overs. They've worked well. The only thing I don't like about them is dirt gets behind them and scuffs up the engine cases. So if you were to see behind this, that engine case is ugly. You can see by the shifter there's a couple of chunks out of the plastic, so I think it's been doing its job. And next to it, this is a Chinesium, front sprocket cover. It just allows you to get in there and clean. Vanish also makes a nice one. The anodizing on the Chinese ones is crap, but I don't really care. The shift lever, that's a stock shift lever. The pegs, these are Bosley pegs. They are lower and slightly to the rear, which I like, gives me a little more leg room. And one thing I always don't understand is why don't people have a fat foot? I ride with so many guys, and every time we stop, they're running around trying to find a rock or a piece of wood. Put a fat foot on your side stand. Plastic skid plate. This thing is amazing. I had the aluminum one. It made so much noise. It bounced the engine noise up. It made so much noise when you were riding, getting smacked by rocks. This one goes all the way back, protects the linkage, protects the rear brake master cylinder, works fantastic. I think this is Molecule Moto. I believe Vanish sells them. I'll put some links down below for this stuff, but I'll never buy another metal skid plate unless I have no other option. Wings exhaust. Now, when I bought this bike, the exhaust gets so hot because the catalytic converter was in it that it was just literally a safety hazard. So I bought the wings. It has a baffle in it. It's not super loud, runs way cooler, and sounds great. Turn signals. The factory turn signals took a beating. I put some LED ones. They've also taken a beating, so it's time to buy some new ones. I have also replaced the front turn signals, and I think I'll use that same model for the rear. Cheap. Amazon has them. Canadian Tire here in Canada sells them. The rear fuel filler on these is crappy design. Dirt gets in the keyhole, and sometimes dirt falls into the tank. So Vanish sells this. No more key. It's got a raised filler neck, so if there's dirt here, it doesn't fall in. I love it. I think I'm actually going to put one on my 901 just because using the key is a pain. And beside that, you can see the Perrin rear rack. Nicely designed. It's 2 layers of aluminum, which I'm not sure why. Most other ones are a single layer, but it works well and it's been there forever. And on top of that, I've got this Enduristan waterproof bag. Works well. The only thing is once in a while you got to lubricate this waterproof zipper. The straps actually wore through. Dirt would get in between the strap and the rack, and so I've been using zip ties, and it works great. Stays tight, never comes loose, so another win for zip ties. I carry a toolkit as well as front and rear tubes and some other goodies. So I'm using these old Wolfman saddlebags. They're very small, they're tucked in behind your legs, so they're not out in the way. If you fall over, they don't jab you. They work very well. I don't believe this model is made anymore. The only problem is they flap up and down no matter how tight you strap them, which is why I added rock straps. If you've got saddlebags, just put a rock strap over them and you won't have flappy bags. I don't do tail tidies because I don't like mud on my back. The rear dangly bit broke off, so I just bolted the license plate to where the taillight used to go and moved the taillight to the side of the plate, and that's been working fine. Here you see the other side, the Motec crash bars, the triple clamp case saver. I'm running an aftermarket brake pedal, the Bosley peg, and here you can really see, it's a bit dark here, how that skid plate comes all the way back under the linkage and protects that rear slave cylinder. Tires, as far as tire goes, I've run a bunch. Ivan loves these Pirelli mid-hards. I've run a bunch of those. They seem fine. They wear well enough. I mean, this is a big single-cylinder bike with a lot of power, so you're going to chew through tires. I'm not a super aggressive rider, and I get a couple of thousand kilometers out of a rear tire. So I imagine if you're a hot shot, you're going to get even less. Here you can see the chain guide. This one's made by BRP. It's got some replaceable parts. It's made of plastic. It doesn't bend. Had good success with it, and I think I would buy that again for sure. So what's my bottom line on this bike? One of the big worries for pretty much everyone buying a motorcycle, whether they're using it on-road or off-road or some combination thereof, is reliability. And I mentioned at the beginning the few issues I've had. There's a lot of these bikes around. Jason had a 690, and now he's got a 701. Ivan's got a 690 with 80,000 kilometers on it. So like any bike that's being beaten pretty hard off-road, you're going to have to do some repairs and maintain it. But I'm convinced this is a very reliable platform. I know a lot of people who are in love with DR650s or KLRs or other bikes. And I know a lot of them that have gotten into decent mileage who've had to do major engine work or engine swaps. So I don't think ridden hard, those bikes actually hold up much better than these bikes do. And these bikes are on a whole other level. I mean, you're talking on the 2024 models, 4 horsepower, as opposed to 30 or 40 on the other available options. Or if you have a Honda, 250 or 300, you're down in the 20s. So I think this is a whole other ball game in terms of power. Right out of the box, you've got real suspension. I'm running this suspension totally stock, and it seems 100% fine. I've owned BMW F800s, I've owned KLRs, so I'm pretty familiar with crappy suspension, and I can tell you that you could throw money at this and make it better. I'm 100% convinced. But right out of the box, you're just in a different league than those bikes. So if you're really looking for a bike where you want amazing on-road performance, I mean, you can ride this thing on twisty tarmac, and it is a hoot. It's got lots of power. You can jump on the highway. Mine's been geared down a bit, but certainly with the stock gearing at 70 miles an hour, 120 kilometers an hour, you whack the throttle, this thing gets up and goes. Where a lot of bikes in this category, which I guess they're not really in this category, are done. We ride with our friend Fred, his CRF 250L. We just put him in front, and at 120, especially with luggage, 120 kilometers an hour, he's running flat out. So you've got an amazing package here in terms of more power than you could ever need. I ran this with a filthy air filter, and it was way down on power, and it was perfectly fine. A whole other league of suspension. Mine's a 2016, so it doesn't have all the electronics. It does have ABS, and I leave the ABS on. It's been on since the day I bought this bike. I bought the dongle, which is under the seat, which turns off the rear ABS. Off-road, it works amazing. It's so unobtrusive. It never comes in when you don't want it. And it's really nice, especially on high-speed gravel. If you ever have to grab a fistful, it's there as a safety net. So the new bikes apparently are in a whole other league of electronics. So if you're into that, it's really the only bike that has that in this 600cc category. Other than that, it's tall. This bike, I'm 5'11" with a 32-inch inseam, and it works okay for me. I'm also 240 pounds, which means when I'm on it, I'm crushing down a lot of that suspension. But if you're short of inseam, it's a tall bike. You can lower it. You can put linkages in the back. You can slide the fork tubes up, or you can have it done right and get the shock shortened and the fork internals shortened. Some years are taller than others for some reason, and there's an inch or so of variant depending on the model year. But overall, if this bike caught fire and burned to the ground tomorrow, there's nothing else out there that weighs as little as this does with this much power, the suspension, and the aftermarket support. The 690s have been around forever, not DR650 forever, but a long time. And the 701's been out since 2016. A lot of the engine parts, crash guards and things, are shared between them. So there's just tons of aftermarket support. In terms of price, people will say, "Oh, well, this, is much more expensive here in Canada. This is $13,000 or $14,000 bike, I think. I can buy a DR650 for $9,000." Well, they're just not in the same category. And there are a ton of these out there used for very reasonable prices. Lots of guys buy these, never take them off-road. So you can go find one of these with a few thousand kilometers on it that's 2 or 3 years old, and you're right in that DR650 price market. So instead of buying a bike where you're out there saying, "Oh, I'm going to swap the front end for something else and put in, suspension components and a pipe and jets," and this bike right out of the box is ready to go. It takes a little bit of getting used to it because You know, it's tall, it's powerful. So it's, I notice a lot of reviewers who are coming from other bikes, a lot of them don't like it right away. I think it's the kind of bike you got to ride it for quite a while to get a handle on it. And it's a different riding style. When you come from a bike that doesn't have any power, and I ride with those guys, and I see them. Every shift is just right to the stopper. You can't do that on this bike. It will, if I shifted this right to the stopper, it would, wheelie and flip over and toss me off. Or if I was off road, it would just spin, insane wheel spin. Same thing. It's a powerful machine. There's lots of rides where, I'm using, I don't use much throttle at all until I actually hit asphalt. And then having that power is really nice because you kind of get a little sport bike as well as a very competent dual sport bike. So there you have it, folks. A long-term review of the Husqvarna 701 Enduro. I'm always skeptical of reviews where the person got the bike from the manufacturer and rode it for a day or two, especially given all the suspension adjustments you can make, how the factory tires are always garbage. So if you're in the market for a 690 or a 701, I hope this helps you. If you would like to get a patch or a sticker, head over to awesomeplayers.com. You can also join us on Facebook. And please leave a comment. We love to hear from you. If you have any questions, I will answer them. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. Really helps us get these videos out so that more people see them. And once again, thanks for watching.